Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show. Listen, I'm glad to have you guys here on this Friday. Friday the 16th. You know, we only got just a little bit over 2 weeks until the United States goes into an election. I'm just going to say this is my opinion only. Now, I'm not for either side. I'm neutral to this. But I think that having an election in the middle of a pandemic in the first place is a bad idea. I don't understand why they just couldn't have postponed it for a few months until the pandemic starts to move away, But it's what they're going to do. They're going to have an election in the middle of a pandemic. And, we have one of the worst possible things happening here that could happen is that there's tense feelings on both sides. And the country is just, I've been out there and I've looked at this morning I've looked at the pre-election, what do they call it? When they do I can't think of the name of it right now, but to see who's winning or whatever, And it's split right now. It's kind of split right up the middle a little bit, between both parties. And it's split to the point where it'd be hard to determine who's going to win, but that's pointing toward it being like 50% of the people in America, are on one side of this fence, and 50% of the people in America are on the other side of this fence. And they've never felt so strongly in their lives, ever. I don't ever remember an election where people feel so strongly, about this. And what this creates is, there's certain issues in the world that people feel very strongly about. Like one issue out there in the world, is the issue of it's an issue that can divide people to the left and to the right on how they feel about a certain issue. And this is that kind of an issue. This is a divisive issue, what I call a divisive issue. And you get 50% on one side, 50%. Now, we all remember what happened during the last election. How people were marching in the streets and screaming and shouting, "Not my president," and it was a big controversy after the elections. But what's going to happen this time is if the elections come in and it's no clear-cut winner, or if the votes need to be counted for weeks and they have kind of I'm very concerned about what's coming or surrounding this election now, Extremely concerned. And at the same time, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. We've got a financial system that's collapsing. It's collapsing, But the stock market keeps going up. It's the strangest thing in the world, The fact that the stock market continues. And I know why. It's because of the Fed creating all this new money. But, there's certain paradoxes out there in the financial system that the Fed has to deal with. They just can't keep creating unlimited amounts of money without going into a hyperinflation. And at the same time, that destroys the system. And on the other side of that, if they don't, then the system is in such a deep state of deflation right now. Honest to gosh, And so we got that to deal with, along with this election coming up. You want my opinion on it? I don't think this thing's going to go smoothly. I don't think it's going to. And, I'm entitled to my opinion, and I don't think it's going to go smoothly at all. I think it was a bad idea to have an election in the middle of a pandemic. And I think that the pandemic's not slowing down either. We're going into this, what they call a second wave, but, deaths are not increasing. Well, that's a good thing. Deaths are not exponentially increasing with the volume that's coming in. Like I heard 10,000 people in one day in Italy, just in Italy alone, come down with this disease, and I was on the news today listening to a woman that has caught it, and she was saying it's a nightmare. She says she says every day, her body aches all day, and unbelievable fatigue, and she says that It feels like something's sitting on top of her chest, and she can't breathe. It feels like you're being suffocated. It's not a pleasant... Well, I mean, that's an understatement. Boy, there's a lot of traffic on the road today. Anyway, listen, guys. You want to get prepared. This thing might not go good, and it might go terribly wrong, And you got 50% of the people on one side of the fence and 50% of the people on the other side of the fence. Both sides feel very strongly about what's going on. And either one of the two sides could feel like they've been cheated. And, this is a recipe for disaster with the financial system and a plague going through at the same time, and just the whole situation coming together in wintertime, it's just, you want to get prepared. One of the places you might want to start is you might want to think about your car, if you got a car. I don't really go in for these bug-out things where they have a backpack and they're going to walk on foot, leave their home, walk on foot. I think you're probably better off staying with your home, and garden your home rather than setting off on foot. But if you got a car would be a much better bug-out plan, in my estimation, especially if you got a locking trunk. Or say you got a minivan or something like that, or even a pickup truck, you can get those locking beds in the back, that fit over top of your bed, and a big locking box. They call them a lock box. You can get a lock box for the back, and you can put bottled water in there and food and supplies, that you need in an emergency. Candles, maybe a tent if you can fit it in there, a little tent, and have it ready so that you can take off with your vehicle at a moment's notice if you have to. And you'll have food and water and a tent in there and things that you need, Myself, I got one of these little, what they call a rocket stove. It's a professionally made one. I bought it special from Amazon a few months back. It's made of stainless steel, and you start a little fire inside of it, and it's got a charging unit on it you can plug your cell phone into, and it'll charge up your cell phone while it cooks your dinner. I bought that. And I got a tent, pop-up tent, And I've been preparing. I've been taking my time preparing, but I'm going to tell you, the thing is if the United States were to go into some sort of problems, they were to have some sort of huge problems in the United States, the grid went down, it would probably carry the grid down too here in Canada. And we've got big problems here too. We're in the middle of the same pandemic. In fact, every country on earth, What a situation we find ourselves in. It seems like this pandemic is what's actually triggered an awful lot of the problems in the world, And it was like once China got the pandemic, and they went through these extensive lockdowns, and it seemed to work. It seemed like every other country on earth, Italy was next. Pandemic moved to Italy, and Italy locked everything down. And then when the other governments saw what these other governments were doing with these lockdowns, then they copycatted. They copycatted all one another, and the first thing you know, every country on earth was in lockdown, But I don't think it was the right move, because we've had pandemics before. Let's go back to 1918, Spanish flu. A pandemic that was probably 6 times worse than this. Probably 6 times more fatal than this, right? And, if they had responded to the Spanish flu the way they responded to this, why, they would have made the crisis much, much larger, They muddled through the Spanish flu. A lot of people died, and they muddled through it, and they got through it, economically speaking and stuff, even though they were back in the war period, war started in 1914, the World War I, and they were still involved in all of that, So that to really find a time that's equivalent of what we're going through right now, you got to go all the way back into the early 1900s to find a time as troublesome as what we're going through right now, And so you got to think about your friends, your neighbors, and your community. And, they're going through the same problems you're going through, and you might be going through the grocery store or something, and you're frustrated because of all the problems and the situation that's happening right now. It's best to be very polite and be very respectful of everyone out there, because everybody's going through the same problems you're going through. And even though you might feel like screaming, because you want things to be back the way they were back in 2019, we got to try to get through this thing together, And there's a real troubled time coming up just ahead with these USA elections. I think it's going to be a big mess. This is my opinion only, I think it's going to be a big mess. And I think that it wouldn't be a bad idea to prepare. If an awful lot of people out there, their fridge is empty most of the time. They just go out and buy food on a day-to-day basis. That's how they live. It's time to start thinking about putting a little something away in case the power goes out, in case we have some sort of a crisis that can't be fixed in an hour. It has to be fixed over a period of time. And you can't get food at your local grocery store, maybe for weeks or maybe even a couple months. Time to think about that, These are trying times we live in, and now the situation has gone beyond. We've passed the Rubicon, I think. And we're not going to get out of this situation until this virus starts to leave now at this point. And I'm anticipating that probably sometime next spring or summer, it's going to start to taper off, That's what I'm anticipating, And so you got to try to get through this period, muddle through it as best you can, and prepare. Even flashlights and flashlight batteries. Prepare like you're preparing for an emergency, like you're preparing if a hurricane was coming. That's how to prepare, And sometimes if you can't buy it, maybe if you got a pickup truck, you got a box in the back, that's great. Maybe if you got a minivan, it might be time to go in and buy a couple Rubbermaid containers to put in the back of your minivan. A couple of those big Rubbermaid containers, maybe go to Walmart, pick up a couple of them, and then stock them with canned food, You could put Kellogg's cereal in there. You could put a canned milk, canned beans. You could put pancake mix in there, pancake syrup. You could have a little propane stove. A small tent, bottled water. Don't forget your things that you like to eat, like candy bars, potato chips, things like that. Cans of sardines, maybe a bottle of pickles, things like that. Put away for yourself and have it in the ready to go, because I'm telling you guys, the time might be limited. We only got just over 2 weeks left until this might be the trigger that sets off something much, much bigger. It kind of rhymes. Trigger that sets off something much, much bigger. That's what this might be like, And so I'm giving you guys a final warning is I just don't know how this is going to play out, and this is a very, very nerve-wracking situation, this election that's coming up right now. I'm hoping it'll play out good. I'm hoping there'll be a clear winner so that there's no civil unrest. But this is what I'm worried about. I'm worried about massive civil unrest surrounding this election cycle. Thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.